Discover the amazing transformation of a 23-year-old virgin exposed to love by her best friend. Emily stood amid the sterile rows of glass containers, fixating on a sample of soil under her microscope. Hours ticked by, and while the weight of expectations rested heavily on her shoulders, the shadows of her family's ideals loomed larger. They expected hard work, dedication, and moral integrity, attributes she had embraced wholeheartedly but overlooked was an essential part of her heart. An artifact of her upbringing, her emotions were buried beneath the pressure to succeed, rendering her little more than a ghost in her own life. In stark contrast, Jake radiated life. He was the vibrant artist, animated and magnetic, effortlessly turning the mundane into masterpieces while she was forever tethered to details on a bank of samples. It was like watching fireworks explode every day, while she faded into the black and white of lab reports. The gap between them yawned wider when he proposed a collaborative art project designed to enliven their small town and, unbeknownst to him, to breathe life into her desiccated spirit. But the notion of vulnerability churned a storm within her. Her heart raced, caught between hope and terror. She agreed, feeling the weight of potential failure stacked precariously on her chest. As they collaborated late into the night, Emily felt strange lightness transform her anxiety into laughter and shared ideas. The intimacy of their late-night brainstorming triggered something unexpected. Emotional walls buckled, threatening to expose her. Simultaneously, she sensed the burgeoning attraction from Jake, blurring the stark lines of friendship. She had spent her whole life prioritizing work over connection, sacrificing the human element for practicality. Jake's warmth broadened her horizons, drawing her closer to a world she had always feared. But in that closeness, doubt tightened its grip. Before they continued, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The seductive pull towards Jake forced Emily to confront an emotional dilemma she had long masked with lab coats and research notes. Could she risk the friendship that meant everything to her for something deeper? A vortex of fear swelled within her, a fear of rejection, of upsetting the moral code etched in her psyche. For Jake, the artistic journey grew muddled in an aura of attraction that made him second-guess every gesture, every glance. Torn between the passion of creation and the potential for heartbreak, he withdrew, leaving Emily in a swirling tempest of unresolved feelings. As their project neared completion, the tension escalated. Their artistic creation loomed as a public culmination, one that implied exposure, while she found herself retreating into her familiar solitude, her heart tangled in longing and regret. Hidden wounds from childhood surfaced in jagged burst scars from generational trauma, imprinting their expectations of labor over love. With every brushstroke, Emily unmasked layers of herself she had never dared to unveil. Yet, the closer they came to exhibition, the more hesitant she became, teetering on the precipice of a life-altering truth. Would she embrace the transformation offered by love, or revert to the rigidity she had known? Despite herself, she clung to the trust that her heart might be free if only she could find the courage to step forward. The unresolved emotions simmered, preparing for an inevitable eruption. What lay ahead for Emily and Jake when the truths they guarded finally broke through the surface? The days leading up to the exhibition felt interminable, each moment pressing down on Emily like an unyielding weight. The studio echoed with laughter and vibrant paints, a stark contrast to the turmoil in her heart. She caught snippets of conversation, Jake's voice lacing through the air, bright and infectious. But around her, a pall of doubt cloaked everything. The looming fear of inadequacy gnawed at her resolve. What if they encountered her true self amidst the colors? What if Jake realized she was just a sophomore lab technician trying to paint her way out of the confines of scientific mundanity? Discomfort tightened its grip. Art, once a canvas of exploration, now mirrored her turbulence. Each stroke mirrored her internal struggle, not just with paint, but with the conviction to embrace vulnerability. Determined to finalize their collaborative piece, Emily arrived earlier than usual, urging herself to shed the doubts that paralyzed her. The studio welcomed her with the smell of turpentine and an electric energy belonging to creativity. She pulled on her apron and stood in front of their shared artwork. Brush strokes of vibrant blues clashed with warm oranges, creating chaotic harmony. It embodied her conflict, reflecting both turmoil and potential. Jake had given her the freedom to express herself, yet she felt like she was betraying his trust with her hesitation. The unfinished sections loomed like a declaration of all she had yet to confront. Standing in front of it, she felt small and lost. Suddenly, the door swung open, and there he was, bright and enthusiastic, with an armful of flowers for inspiration. "Hey, Emily. Look what I found. Nature's palette," he said, and his laughter sparkled in the air like sunlight breaking through clouds. She caught herself smiling, momentarily swept away by his energy. But then the shadows crept in again, whispering their malevolent doubts. It felt like a fatal mistake to involve herself emotionally, to invite the unpredictable nature of love into her meticulously planned world. She had built her life around control. Spontaneity felt dangerous. But could she truly retreat to her cocoon, sacrificing connection for fear of heartache? "What's wrong?" Jake questioned, his perceptive eyes narrowing as he picked up on her tension. Emily hesitated, feeling the weight of her truth battle against her instinct to protect. "I am worried that this piece won't resonate the way we hoped," she deflected, avoiding the more pressing issues bubbling within her heart. Jake furrowed his brow, stepping closer, and for a moment, the world narrowed down to just the two of them. "It's not just about the art, you know. It's about us creating together the connection we share when we paint." His words were electric, resonating deeper than the colors around them. At that moment, she realized the exhibition would not simply display their artwork but would be a reflection of their journey. The past weeks had dredged up fears, and despite her clenching instincts, this piece represented more than their artistic collaboration, it represented her emotional awakening. As she considered his words, a tide of determination surged within her. If she chose to break free from self-imposed shackles, she could finally embrace both her artistic identity and the affection growing for Jake. "Let us finish it together," she declared, a newfound resolve fortifying her voice. She picked up a brush, ready to unravel the truth woven in every stroke. Yet, as they painted, an insistent question lingered in the back of her mind, gnawing at her courage. Could she truly step into this new narrative entwined with Jake? Would she risk transformation or stay bound to the familiar chains of fear? And as the last strokes of color merged on canvas, the weight of impending decisions pressed upon her even heavier. The exhibition was imminent, and her heart was not the only thing at stake. They would reveal more than just art, they would unveil themselves. What would unfold when she found the courage to expose not just her palette but her heart as well? The moment of truth approached, and the air crackled with a palpable intensity, leaving Emily on the cusp of an undeniable choice. The moment they finished the last brush stroke, Emily stepped back, her heart racing as she stared at the canvas. Jake's presence felt like a warm wind at her back, pushing her toward the inevitable confrontation with her deepest fears. Was this vibrant piece an unveiling of her artistic spirit, or merely another way to mask her fragile heart? With their creation complete, the studio that had once seemed so daunting now radiated a sense of potential. But mingled with that potential was a gnawing sense of dread. The gallery wasn't just a showcase for their work, it was a threshold into a new chapter of her life, one rife with uncertainty. "Hey, it looks incredible." Jake's voice broke into her thoughts, excitement shimmering in his tone. Yet beneath his enthusiasm, she sensed a hidden question. Did she share his excitement, or was she drowning in fear? "Thanks," she said, forcing a smile, but the tensions within her shifted like an earthquake, sending tremors through her confidence. Jake was everything she admired: talented, kind, and impossibly intuitive. To her, he was an artist embodying every truth she struggled to accept. Vulnerability breathed strength. The days leading to the exhibition raced by, each one a mingling of terror and exhilaration. Emily found herself waking up at dawn, creating a checklist of things to prepare, trying to control every variable. But as she scribbled down list items, flashes of self-doubt haunted her. What if the exhibition was a disaster? What if no one saw what they had created as anything more than childish scribbles? Would Jake regret collaborating with her? Glimpses of her past echoed in her mind, moments where she had felt inadequate, overshadowed by voices that told her she was never enough. Each critique replayed, and despite all she had achieved, it was the negative that blared the loudest. Resilience hadn't been her default mode. It had taken monumental courage to put those fears aside and become part of the artistic community. As Emily prepped for the show, she shifted into old habits, channeling her anxiety into perfectionism. Every detail had to be immaculate: lighting, display, even the seating arrangements. Jake, however, floated through the preparations, lightheartedly teasing her about unnecessary fussiness. He wanted the experience to be joyful, a celebration. But when the laughter faded, she felt the weight of unspoken expectations. "You ready for tonight?" he asked, his voice softening as they stood amid the chaos of final preparations. I don't know," she replied, her gut tightening. Should she confess her fear of failing, or hide it beneath the facade she had carefully constructed? "Remember, it's not just about the art, Em. It's about everything we shared creating it. No matter what happens tonight, that's what matters most," he reassured her, his gaze unwavering. Those words struck something deep within her, igniting a resolve she desperately needed. They had created this art together, and it told their story. Perhaps it was time to tell hers as well, the story of a girl challenging herself to embrace both the chaos of emotions and the beauty of life outside her comfort zone. As the evening approached and guests began to fill the gallery, adrenaline coursed through her veins. The murmurs, the laughter, even the clinking of glasses grew louder, intensifying the weight of what lay ahead. Emily's heart thrummed against her ribcage as she stepped into the glow of the gallery. The air crackled with anticipation. Tonight, she would reveal herself not just through the canvas, but in her rawest form. She was not just the lab technician, not merely the artist, she was a woman on the brink of transformation, standing on the precipice of both love and fear. What would happen when the first guest reacted to their masterpiece? What fleeting moments would shape her night, and would they morph her journey from this point onward? The choice to fully embrace her heart awaited her, trembling on the cusp of revelation. As the first few guests began to admire their work, Emily felt an electric pulse of anxiety shoot through her body. Each smiley face that stepped closer to their piece sent her heart racing with a mixture of hope and dread. She watched them analyze the colors and forms, seeking either validation or dismissal in their expressions. Were they interpreting her emotions as envisioned, or was it merely an abstract blur to them? Jake moved about with natural ease, his charm and humor lighting up the room. Emily observed how effortlessly he absorbed the energy of the event. She admired his authenticity, horrified by how meticulously she had created her own defensive barriers. Each laugh he elicited felt like a reminder of her own shortcomings. Why couldn't she share that joy? Why was vulnerability so scary? "Hey, Emily. Come join us." A local art critic called from the crowd, drawing attention back to the centerpiece of the evening. She took a deep breath and forced herself to step into the circle. The critic's eyes sparkled as if he were taking in hidden layers of the work. "What do you think?" he probed, turning to her inquisitively. The pressure of the moment pressed down. The room felt too large and yet confined by the intensity of attention focused solely on her. Would he see the child behind the brushstrokes, the scared girl who had intentionally shrouded herself in confusion? "It's a collaboration," she began, her voice shaky yet firm, attempting to anchor herself. "Jake and I found a way to share our experiences, our fears, and ultimately, our growth as individuals through this piece." The criticism she had long feared loomed large, yet she felt an unexpected surge of clarity in her explanation. It was as if speaking her truth quelled the tempest inside her. The critic nodded, a pleased smile breaking across his face. "This piece encapsulates raw emotion. I can feel the conflict and connection," he remarked. With each honest word she spoke, Emily felt chains break. Maybe this wasn't about perfection but vulnerability. Perhaps sharing her process allowed her to shed layers of self-imposed armor. As the night wore on, compliments poured in, buoyed by laughter and shared enthusiasm. Guests engaged in animated discussions around the art, devouring the narrative she had been too afraid to acknowledge. Blooms of confidence began to sprout within her. She realized that she no longer owned the confines of her insecurity. She was merely a vessel for the stories expressed through paint. Midway through the evening, Jake approached her, a grin plastered on his face. "You were amazing out there. Did you see how they lit up while hearing your thoughts?" Emily felt warmth spread through her chest at his praise. "Thanks, I was terrified at first. But, I don't know, it felt freeing." "Exactly. That's what art does," he said, enthusiasm radiating from him. "It connects us, tells our stories. You've taken this leap, keep going." The night continued to unfurl, each moment a step further from the shadows of her past. Then, just as she began to settle into her newfound strength, Emily spotted someone across the room: Rachel, a former colleague and a voice from her past that had shaped so much of her self-doubt. The anxiety seeped back in, wrapping tightly around her heart. How would Rachel react? Would she bring forth the uncertainties Emily had fought so hard to overcome? What if Rachel's words cut deeper than the praises of the night? It was clear that tonight had opened a door, but would this confrontation jeopardize all she had begun to reclaim? She hesitated at the threshold of fear, knowing she now stood at another pivotal moment. The gallery was alive with the sounds of hope and celebration, yet the upcoming conversation loomed heavy, a confrontation hiding in the shadows. Times like these were inevitable. Would she have the strength to face the voice that haunted her, a voice now confronted with the changing narrative of her life? Emily's heart raced as Rachel took a few confident strides toward her, radiating an air of sophistication and authority that always made Emily feel smaller. The confidence she had briefly harvested began to ebb, swallowed by the memories of criticism and doubt Rachel had once inflicted. She stood still, rooted in place, locked in a battle with her own insecurities, the vibrant conversations around her fading into a dull roar. "Emily. Is that really you?" Rachel's voice sliced through the crowd, laced with a mix of surprise and perhaps condescension. "I almost didn't recognize you with all this." She gestured toward the artwork, her expression difficult to read. Emily's instinct was to retreat, to shield her vulnerabilities, but she had stepped into a new realm of courage. It was a silent assertion that the girl who painted these canvases was not defined by her past, nor by Rachel's opinions. Mustering the resolve fueled by the night's earlier affirmations, she took a breath and stepped forward, eyes locked with Rachel's. "It's me, Rachel." "I've changed," Emily said, her voice firm, a firm contrast to the uncertainty she felt moments before. "This artwork is part of my journey, a journey I think you've been too quick to judge. It's not just paint on a canvas. It's my story." Rachel's surprise morphed into a wry smile. "Your story? It looks like a cry for attention, not growth. Are you sure you don't want to step back into your comfort zone?" The words tumbled out heavy, carrying the weight of their complicated past. The old Emily would have flinched, would have retreated, but this time something shifted within her. The validations of the evening thrummed through her veins. "You don't know my journey or what it took for me to stand here tonight. I used to hide behind my art, behind my fears. I'm done hiding." Rachel's brows lifted as if encountering an Emily she never knew existed. "Is that right? Well, let us see how long this newfound confidence lasts when faced with truth, shall we?" The challenge in her tone ignited a flicker of defiance in Emily's chest. "Maybe it's time for you to confront your own insecurities too," Emily replied, her gut tightening. She was treading into unknown territory and could feel the stakes rising, both personally and professionally. "Is that what you think? That I need a lesson in growth? Just because you throw a few colors together doesn't mean you've transformed." Rachel's eyes narrowed. Their audience had thinned to include the two, the animated discussions muffled into the background noise of their confrontation. This wasn't merely about art anymore, it was a point of validation for Emily, a test of her resilience built from the very insecurities that Rachel had once exploited. "I'm willing to embrace direct feedback now, Rachel," Emily retorted, fighting against the impulse to retreat further, "because I've learned that criticism isn't a marker of my worth, it's an opportunity for growth." The air between them hummed with tension, Emily's words hung, defiant against the backdrop of her past. Rachel's smirk faltered, revealing a flicker of uncertainty, but she quickly masked it with bravado. "We'll see how long that lasts, one we." With one last cutting glance, Rachel turned and walked away. The encounter left Emily breathless, a mix of triumph and turmoil coursing through her. Had she truly taken a step toward reclaiming her narrative, or had she merely scratched the surface of a deeper battle? The confidence she had felt just moments ago wavered on the brink of doubt. She had stood up to Rachel, but the internal war did not feel entirely won. In that charged silence, Emily understood the stakes were higher than she had anticipated. Now she had to confront both the external and internal criticisms, unraveling what it meant to truly grow and reclaim her voice. Turning away from the lingering echoes of confrontation, she realized her journey had only just begun, and the real test awaited her inside. But what was she truly capable of, and how would she rise to meet those who loomed from her past? The night had sparked a newfound determination, yet as fragile as it was, it hovered on the edge of uncertainty, demanding answers she was yet to find. The gallery lights dimmed slightly, casting a softer glow on the canvases, yet the brilliance of their colors mirrored the tumultuous emotions surging within Emily. She stood alone for a moment, absorbing the moment, her heart still racing, not from confrontation, but from the intoxicating blend of fear and exhilaration. This night was a marker, a line drawn in the sand, yet she felt entirely unprepared for the journey ahead. Moving away from the lingering tension of the encounter with Rachel, Emily made her way to a quieter corner of the gallery. She leaned against a wall and took a deep breath. The thrill of asserting herself was beginning to fade under the weight of uncertainty. What if Rachel was right? What if this was just a fleeting surge of confidence? What if her art really was a mere cry for attention? Fixing her gaze on her paintings, she recalled the hours spent pouring herself into each brushstroke. Each piece held not only pigment and canvas but fragments of her fears, dreams, and ultimately her growth. The vivid reds and deep blues spoke of struggles and triumphs alike, but were these truly authentic representations of her journey? Or were they merely a facade, a coping mechanism masking her deeper insecurities? Determined not to falter further, she closed her eyes and focused inward. What did she want her art to reflect? More than a response to Rachel's scorn, it had to speak of her own narrative, unfiltered and unapologetic. She realized that tonight had done more than push her to confront Rachel, it had also nudged her toward a confrontation with herself. "I have to trust my own voice," she whispered under her breath, feeling the weight of the words settle over her. With that gentle affirmation, a renewed sense of purpose flooded in. There was something liberating in acknowledging her flaws and honestly embracing them. Maybe Rachel had unwittingly handed Emily a gift, a chance to do the work within herself and through her art. As the gallery filled back up, she took a moment to eye her audience. A few art enthusiasts lingered, discussing the pieces, their tones varying widely from genuine appreciation to passing critiques. Emily observed their reactions with an analytical eye, parsing through compliments and criticism alike. She forced herself to embrace the discomfort of being seen, pushing aside the prospect of rejection and transforming it into curiosity. In that moment of observation, Emily discovered something unexpected in herself: resilience. She had grasped the art of feedback and the strength it demanded to filter negativity while welcoming constructive insights. Each conversation became a small experiment, a test of her ability to remain open and engage with her audience, ready to learn and grow but unwilling to waver under scrutiny. Among the assembled guests, she spotted a few familiar faces, supporters who had cheered for her journey. With them, she felt a renewed sense of belonging, a subtle reminder that she was not alone in her pursuit of validation. Gathering her thoughts, Emily embraced the idea of inviting deeper conversations about her work. Could she seek out the perspectives of those who might appreciate her art, not merely as an expression but as part of a collective experience? Shifting her stance, she prepared to mingle, committing to open dialogues and affirmations of her path. Pushing aside past uncertainties, she embraced the moment with a sense of newfound clarity and excitement. But just as she took her first step into the crowd, a text from an unrecognized number lit up her phone screen. Heart racing anew, she hesitated. Who could it be? The anticipation tugged at her, wrapping her up in both hope and apprehension. She opened the message, and a single sentence sent a jolt through her. "I know about your conversation with Rachel. We need to talk." In that moment, a fresh wave of uncertainty washed over her, leaving her wondering if she was ready for the revelations ahead and what they might challenge within her. Each thread of confidence she had begun to weave was suddenly back in question, daring her to confront something far more unsettling. Emily's breath hitched as the message settled in her mind. The implications of those words twisted her stomach in a tight knot. She could not ignore the urgency behind the text, and yet, she hesitated. Should she confront whatever issues were being raised, or was it wiser to retreat into the safety of the gallery, where the air of appreciation stitched a thin, comforting barrier around her? With a determined pulse, she made her way deeper into the crowd, her thoughts whirling as she chatted with patrons and fellow artists. Each conversation flowed like paint across a canvas, some bright and lively, others dark and muddied. Her intent was to absorb everything, to shift her focus onto others and distract herself from the emotional turmoil brewing within. Yet the phone buzzed again, an annoyance she wished she could silence completely. Another message, this isn't just about Rachel. It's about you. That single line felt like an electric pulse up her spine. The implications radiated through her, a reminder of how deeply interconnected her identity was with external perceptions and internal conflicts. Who exactly was she if not defined by relationships and reactions? As she found herself speaking with a collector, a middle-aged woman with keen eyes who admired her work, Emily pulled at her own sense of clarity, maintaining her composure. I wanted my art to evoke emotional truths, she asserted, challenging herself to be forthright rather than seeking approval. The woman nodded, but Emily's gut knew it was critical to push through with greater honesty. But I've struggled to embrace the deeper elements of my experiences. It's a paradox of vulnerability and strength. The collector's brow quirked upward. And how do you reconcile that in your art? With every word, Emily tentatively crafted an answer. She spoke about her journey through doubt and self-discovery, how her art had borne witness to her battles, victories, and regrets. Each experience layered like a paintbrush stroke, she allowed the collector a glimpse of the truth she'd often avoided revealing. This practice of articulation, the leap of faith to narrate her experiences, felt oddly therapeutic. With every statement, the pressure of external expectations began to subside, along with the weight of Rachel's judgment. Could expressing these raw facets of herself, even in a surface-level gallery talk, fortify her against the uncertainty of the unknown conversation looming ahead? The night unfolded gradually, moments of fluid engagement punctuated by the persistent text messages from the unknown number. As she continued to capture insights from those who appreciated her work, she offered her own reflections and even encountered some articulate critiques. Each interaction served as a small mosaic, adding depth and dimension to her overall understanding of the art she created and, most importantly, to herself. In gazing around at the gallery's atmosphere, vibrant and mixed with voices, she caught sight of a fellow artist across the room, Marcus, a man she had admired from afar for his fearless approach to emotionally charged art. He was deep in conversation, gesturing passionately about his creations and the vulnerability they represented. She felt a pull towards him. His energy sparked an urge to seek out those connections that felt real. But as she steeled herself to approach, her phone lit up again, another text vying for her attention, tinged with intrigue and urgency. This involves your past, Emily. If you want to grow, don't avoid it. Standing among unfamiliar faces, Emily realized she had a choice. She could either approach Marcus and delve deeper into the art of openness, or she could succumb to the rising disquiet nagging at her from behind the safety of her phone screen. It was a question of transformation. Could she confront her past and what it meant for her present? The tension grew heavy, forcing a decision. With an internal breath, she cast her gaze toward Marcus, resolved to take a step forward. Yet as she moved, her heart thrummed louder, echoing her fears and hopes. But before she could reach him, a familiar figure stepped into her path. It was Rachel, and the look on her face carried the weight of unfinished business. The moment stretched infinitely before her, the air thick with unresolved conflict, daring her to engage or retreat. Emily paused, grasping the visceral challenge of this encounter. It was not merely about Rachel or even the conversation she had to face on the phone, it was about the confrontation of her own evolving identity amidst uncertainty. With resolute feet, she squared her shoulders, ready to embrace whatever this would reveal. Emily's heart raced, and her mind swirled as she locked eyes with Rachel. The surface calm of the gallery belied the tempest brewing within. She could almost feel the expectations weighing heavily, as if the very air around her conspired to anchor her in place. "Emily," Rachel said, her voice steady but laced with an intensity that suggested unresolved tensions. "We need to talk." Those 5 words erupted within Emily, drawing her focus like a magnet. Every instinct shouted her to retreat, to find solace among the diverse chatter of the gallery, but she was also aware of that steady drive deep inside one she had only begun to unearth. Taking a breath, she nodded, holding Rachel's gaze with more confidence than she felt. "Let us talk." They stepped aside from the festive noise, moving toward a quieter corner. Emily's mind raced with what Rachel could possibly want to address. In the past, Rachel's words had the power to cut deep, stirring insecurities Emily had worked hard to suppress. Yet she had also maneuvered into a space of partial clarity from her discussions tonight. "I've been thinking about us," Rachel began, her expression earnest. "About how we've been there for each other. Or haven't been." In that moment, Emily understood that this was the crux: accountability. It wasn't just about the friendship they shared, it was about Emily's willingness to confront the expectations she placed upon herself as a friend, an artist, and a person molded by fear. "I've felt it too," Emily admitted, feeling vulnerability ripple through her, almost liberating. "I've been retreating from you. It's not fair to either of us." As the words poured out, Emily felt a shift. They were no longer just sounds, but the beginning of a dialogue she needed to establish with herself. Rachel's shoulders seemed to sag with a mix of relief and tension. "I feel like we're both stuck in this pattern. You put up walls, and I just don't know how to break through." Emily could see the truth of Rachel's words, and they mirrored the struggle she had faced all night. She had built these barriers not only to guard her emotions but also to avoid confronting her past and what it meant for her present. "Maybe I've been afraid to open up," she said quietly, admitting what she had resisted acknowledging. "Afraid of what you might think or how it might affect my art." "Your art is about truth, isn't it?" Rachel countered gently. "And isn't that part of you?" Emily's chest tightened. Rachel was probing deeper into the territory she had skirted for too long. What was her art without the authenticity of her own life? "I think I've confused vulnerability with weakness," Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I feared that opening up would make me less what?" Rachel pressed, her voice a soft encouragement. "Less worthy. Less capable of creating." Those words echoed through Emily's mind, resonating with long-held fears. Then, she recalled the collector's question from earlier. She had spoken of her struggles to weave her truth into her creations despite her fear. "Maybe nurturing that vulnerability is where my strength lies," Emily continued, her thoughts becoming clearer with each second. "By confronting these feelings, I'm not only honoring myself but also my art." Rachel watched her with newfound consideration, a supportive flame where cold judgment had once lingered. "I want to understand, Em. Help me, let us help each other." It was tempting to retreat into doubt, to seep back into the familiar shadows of insecurity. But Emily felt something crack open inside. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the pivotal chance for transformative growth. With newfound determination, she extended her hand, a gesture soaked in honesty. "Can we rebuild what we've lost?" As Rachel accepted her hand, that warmth surged through Emily once more. She was ready to embrace confrontation, to channel her truth into the colors of her existence both on the canvas and in her relationships. Yet, just as a flicker of hope ignited between them, the weight of her phone in her pocket became more pronounced. Buzzing yet again, demanding her attention. It was an ominous reminder that the past wouldn't remain dormant forever. "Let us talk more after this," Rachel suggested, reading Emily's flicker of hesitation. "Definitely," Emily replied, the knot of anxiety now interwoven with determination. But as she pulled her phone from her pocket, a new message illuminated the screen, a name she hadn't expected. "Emily, we need to discuss your father." Her pulse quickened. The weight of her past branded itself to the forefront of her mind. She had dismissed the impending call for long enough. Okay. She faced Rachel, who looked equally bemused and supportive. More than I realized is at stake. With a final breath, Emily resolved to face the conflict head-on. She could unravel something within that would redefine her relationship with her art, herself, and perhaps, even her father. And as she stepped back into the vibrant noise of the gallery, a veiled uncertainty wrapped around her heart. One truth crystallized: the real confrontation awaited her, and it was time to meet it with open arms. Stepping back into the thrumming energy of the gallery, Emily felt a mix of elation and dread. The vibrant conversations and clinking of glasses blurred into a sea of noise that threatened to swirl her anxious thoughts away. She took a steadying breath, trying to pull herself together. The message flashing on her phone, however, loomed larger than the crowd, a glaring reminder of the weight she had thwarted for too long. "Your father," she breathed to herself, standing still beneath the colorful lights that danced above. It wasn't merely a name, it was a legacy of unresolved feelings, bitterness, and longing wrapped in an emotional package that Emily had neatly tucked away. Now, with the journey of growth stretching before her like an uncharted path, she felt the tug of familiarity, but she also felt the whisper of something new: courage. Just do it, she told herself as she navigated through the lingering throngs of art enthusiasts. Each step felt heavier than the last, but with each movement, something shifted within. Progress, she realized, is rarely linear. It's often a tangled web of confronting inner conflicts layered with fear and hope. Finding an isolated corner, Emily pressed her back against the cool wall and waited for the pulsating rhythm of anxiety to ease. She turned her eyes to her phone, the screen illuminating her immediate world, a modern compass guiding her to truths long buried. But was she ready to unearth them? Tapping on the message sent her heart racing again. It showed that the association with her father was, unsurprisingly, fraught with complexity. He had never deeply delved into her chosen career. His absence cast long shadows over her formative years, a vacuum she had only recently begun to address. Fear gripped her momentarily. That familiar old voice tried to drown her resolve. "You're just not good enough," it taunted. "No," she retorted internally, recalling the strength she had felt with Rachel. "I can't allow that voice to win." It was time to confront the past, to redefine her relationship with both her father and herself. The notion sent electric shocks of clarity through her. The past wasn't the anchor, it was the catalyst for her evolution. Empowered by that realization, she committed to her next steps. She texted back, arranging a meeting, a planned confrontation. "I will face him," Emily resolved, recognizing that this action was not just about reconciling their relationship but reclaiming her narrative. As she pocketed her phone, the heaviness of dread was replaced with determination. Suddenly, she began to reflect on her art. It had always served as a communication channel, weaving intricate tales of her emotional landscape. But lately, it had felt stale, a reflection of the barriers she had erected around herself. The vulnerability she had feared seemed to be the very thread that could rejuvenate her creativity. "I will explore these feelings through my work," she mused, envisioning a series of pieces that shared her journey of grappling with vulnerability, fear, and ultimately, acceptance. She could paint her father's love or lack thereof, weave in her struggles, and illustrate the journey of self-acceptance. Just then, Rachel approached her, a knowing look on her face. "You okay? You look like you're in deep thought," she queried, her voice laced with genuine concern. Emily shared her decision about the meeting. "I need to parse it out, Rachel. It feels like a step toward claiming my truth." "Good," Rachel said, gripping her arm in solidarity. "You owe it to yourself, Em. Just remember you're more than your past." Those words lingered in the air like a promise, igniting something deeper within her. With newfound self-assuredness, she felt ready to tackle not just the upcoming meeting but also her art. But as they moved back into the throng, Emily realized that the confrontation with her father was only the beginning. The complexities of familial ties wouldn't untangle neatly, and she knew that reckoning with her own fears about love, creativity, and acceptance would take persistent effort. Feeling the pulse of the gallery envelop her, she glanced around, absorbing the vibrant hues and myriad personalities. In that moment, anxiety was only a faint echo, overshadowed by a burgeoning sense of empowerment. With every brushstroke she envisioned, Emily would transform her pain into beauty. Yet, she couldn't shake the thought of how her father would react. The wariness mixed with hope reminded her that transformation does not come without its challenges. As they walked through the hall, Emily caught a glimpse of an installation that beckoned her attention. Shadows and Light, the title read. The visual metaphor struck a chord within her. Would her journey hold the same duality? Would she emerge from the shadows? The moment had come to fully embrace the complexity within her life and art. With one final glance at the piece, Emily set her sights forward. The time had come to dive deep into both emulation of the artist she wanted to become and the person she needed to face. The real work was before her, and with determination coursing through her, she was ready to engage it fully. Yet, with every step taking her closer to the confrontation with her father, a realization began to anchor inside her. Deep-rooted revelations were waiting, ones that could shift not only how she viewed her past but also redefine her future. And as she walked beside Rachel, bubbling with newfound purpose, Emily could only wonder, would this meeting shatter her, or liberate her in ways she had never dared to imagine? Emily stood on the cusp of a new beginning, the gallery lights shimmering around her like stars twinkling in a dark sky. The journey of the last few weeks had been monumental, full of trials that had torn down walls she had built since childhood. As she glanced around the room, now bustling with appreciative guests, a wave of satisfaction coursed through her. She had unmasked herself not just as an artist but as a woman willing to confront her past, her fears, and her capacity to embrace love. The experience at the exhibition had cemented her transformation. Conversations with guests had shifted from superficial chit-chat to heartfelt exchanges where she had shared her stories, her art's intent, and the vulnerability that lay within. From discussing emotional truths with a critic to standing against Rachel's lingering doubts, each moment had fortified her resolve. She had claimed her narrative and discovered a powerful voice in the process. Yet far more compelling than the public's response was Emily's internal metamorphosis. The weight that had once flattened her chest had started to lift, revealing a newfound confidence. Connecting with Jake had illuminated the joy of shared creativity, and their collaboration had untangled the insecurities that had once plagued her. Every brushstroke during their artistic endeavor had not only healed her fragmented spirit but scrawled her authentic story for the world to see. In the days following the exhibition, Emily had been flooded with messages from various patrons expressing admiration and interest in her work. The local art community had begun to recognize her not just as Jake's collaborator but as a distinct creator in her own right. In an overwhelmingly gratifying twist, a gallery had expressed interest in hosting her solo exhibit. This was tangible proof of her growth, a recognition she had long yearned for yet thought unattainable. But the most pivotal step remained before her, meeting her father. The lingering emotions from their fraught past twisted inside her like an intricate pattern: fear, anger, longing, and hope entwined, each demanding her attention. Emily had procrastinated for far too long, but now she felt armed, ready to confront the man whose absence had fueled so much of her doubt. Clenching her jaw, she reminded herself of all she had learned. This would be her moment to reclaim her world. As she arrived at the cafe designated for their meeting, uncertainty fluttered within her. Would he understand how his absence had shaped her? Would he perceive her art as simply childish or regard it as a reflection of the woman she had become? Collecting her thoughts, she reminded herself that she had transformed. Vulnerability was no longer a liability, it was her strength. When her father arrived, Emily felt a rush of familiarity and resentment. He looked the same yet somehow different, the years of distance palpable between them. As they exchanged pleasantries, she was acutely aware of how different she felt compared to their last encounter. "Emily, it's good to see you," he started, the warmth in his voice momentarily disarming her. "Good to see you too, Dad." Her tone carried a steadiness that surprised even her. Minutes ticked by as they navigated small talk, trading polite banter that felt like soft armor against the deeper discussions that needed to happen. Then, summoning all her resolve, Emily made the leap. "I wanted to talk about what happened between us." His expression dimmed slightly, the air thickening with unsaid words. "All right, what's on your mind?" Taking a breath, Emily laid bare her feelings, how his distance had created voids that simmered into insecurity, how she had suppressed embracing creativity in fear of his opinion. I think you're part of the reason I have struggled emotionally. I felt like I couldn't reach you, like you didn't care. She watched as he absorbed her words, his face reflecting surprise and guilt. I didn't know you felt that way, he admitted, his voice low. I always thought striving for a secure future was what you needed. It might have been what I thought I needed, she countered, her voice gaining strength, but my heart craved connection and understanding. Art became my lifeline, a way to express what I couldn't articulate. The conversation unfolded gradually but profoundly. Each confession unlocked layers of her father's own insecurities, revealing that he too had built walls to protect himself against disappointment. By the time they finished talking, the daylight had waned outside, and Emily sensed a shift not just in the air between them, but within herself. The meeting evolved from confrontation into real dialogue, an unshackling of both their truths. As they stood to part, her father's eyes glistened with newfound understanding. I've missed you, Em. I see now I failed to understand you. I want to support you in your art. That promise hung between them, warm and tentative. Emily felt a sense of closure enveloping her. She had taken a giant step toward healing and recognition from a crucial part of her life. Walking away from that cafe, her heart swelled with an invigorating lightness. She had faced history and reclaimed her narrative through both her art and her relationship with her father. Emily realized that achieving personal transformation was not an endpoint but an ongoing journey, a tapestry of vulnerability, connection, and courage that would continue to unfold. With every brushstroke of her art and every truth shared, she had proven to herself and the world that the shadows woven into her experiences could illuminate the canvas of her life, offering not only recognition but acceptance, a lesson she would carry forward into every encounter. This was just the beginning of a new chapter, rich and layered, waiting for her to explore it with the same vibrant spirit she had found within. But before she dove deeper into this new journey, Emily knew she had one action left: to celebrate it, both authentically and openly. As she pulled out her phone, she drafted a message to her followers: I'm creating a new project inspired by my journey of embracing vulnerability through art. Join me in this adventure of growth and creativity. It was time to share her transformation with the world, and she could hardly wait to see where it would take her next. And with that, Emily felt a strong pull of excitement. She was ready for whatever came next. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment their reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.